talking about aeration, vertical mowing, top dressing, because the three should go hand in hand. Because what we're trying to do is we've got to remove thatch some, we've got to dilute it some, and we've got to do these together, because dilution is the key to managing thatch. The thatch, especially in these newer grasses, it's going to be laid down in the soil no matter what we do. But if we're diluting it where it remains porous, and we're continuing to move air and water through it, that's a key, and that doesn't happen just with aeration. A lot of people think that as we're talking about more aeration, we're talking about 5 or 6 times a year. And as we're going to talk about today, that's not what we're talking about at all. We've got the tools and the equipment to do a better job with our aeration efficiency in terms of what the golfer sees. We just got to make the most out of it, and there's some tricks we need to get on this. Here's some of the things that you're limited on. The number of aerations per year. The timing of those aerations based on a golf calendar. There's still a lot of clubs that will give the superintendent, here's the 2 times that you can aerate, and they may or may not be good. So you know, if it's the end of February and middle of August, that's not doing you a lot of good because it fits into the golf calendar well. The close time for aeration, that's a big thing. You know, a lot of you guys, you have 1 day to get the greens aerated, cleaned up, top dressed, worked in, brush, rolled, smooth, and ready to play the next day. And that's ridiculous. You can't do the job that you want to do in 1 day with that kind of work. The equipment that you have, there are still golf courses today that don't have some of the better technology with aeration equipment, and you know, are not able to get the job done as well or as quickly as they want. And then the amount of disruption which goes straight to tine size. And I mentioned this, still have some courses that, you know, put that restriction on tine size. We're only going to use that 1/4 inch or 3/8 tine so that we're back open and it's less disruptive for the golfers. So what then is your goal? When you look at those questions, this is what you have to ask yourselves. What is your maximum efficiency for your limitations? You know, what is the best job that you can do for what you have and the timing, and how do you go about that? You must be established on conditions, and this is based on your root zone of your soil. If you have a perfectly well-built green to the USGA method, and it's a few years old and it's been well maintained, you don't have near the demands of what you've got to get done as somebody with a 30-year-old green that's maybe the sand quality is not what you want today. It's built up with layers, whatever the case may be over the years. How much traffic do you have? If you're on a golf course that's running 40, 50, even 60,000 rounds a year, a lot different of what your demands are and what your conditions are, what you're trying to achieve, than that golf course that's running 15 or 18,000 rounds a year. And then the type of grass, like we say, the newer grasses that we have, whole nother ball game, especially the ultra-doors, in managing thatch than the older grasses we have today, and we have to take that into consideration. Here's the perfect example right here. This is on a ultra-dwarf green, and this is an ultimate aeration operation that you see. He does it twice a year. You see the lines right here. This is where he just went over that green with a fairway type vertical mower, 2-inch spacing, 1/2 inch depth, 2 directions at a 45, blow it off. Then he's coming back with a 5/8 sided jet tine, doing the aeration, cleaning it off, top dressing, working it in. I mean, he's really done a thorough aeration, and he only does it twice a year. And he does a great job of maintaining that zone because he has a good top dressing, light verticutting program all through the rest of the year. And the thing is, his club actually really likes and supports this program because when he started taking advantage of the technology, this verticutting, the closer center aeration, all these things, he's getting more productivity out of that than he was years ago before this, going with the 5/8 time on the 2 or 2 1/4 inch center and doing it 3 times a year. So see, he is, as the golfer goes, he's doing less impact, but he's doing quite a bit more percentage of impact of that surface and how he manages his grass. So I think that's important to talk with our people. We're not talking about increasing the number of aerations. We're talking about equipment, technology to improve that efficiency. I hate that Mike's not here, because I was going to tell him that this is how he learned deep tine aeration in Italy, but we can't pick on him and his sabbatical since he's not here. Now, this is what we considered very aggressive vertical mowing 10 years ago with the grasses that we had. This is the triplex unit. He's going over in 2 directions, set at 1/8 of an inch. And people consider that very aggressive at that time. With the new grasses today, that's tickling the surface. That may sound aggressive to you, or you even think it's aggressive, but not with the new grasses anymore. This is maintaining what you've got, if you've got good programs with the others to go along with it, with the deepers. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit. Here's a good example right here. This is verticutting on the bent, and this is set at 1/4 inch, and they're really going. And that there again, that used to be, that would have considered very aggressive, but today that's more the type of what we're talking about with surface grooming with these new grasses, because of their aggressiveness and their ability to produce thatch. We've got to do a corresponding with aggressiveness with that. And the thing is, if you look, I took this picture because if you showed that to a GM or a green chairman, they would almost have a heart attack if they thought you were doing that on their green. But yet, when they got finished with this operation, and it's in the morning and everything's sticking to it, you know the drill. But the picture itself is pretty scary. But when they got finished with this, clean, mowed up and cleaned up, you could hardly tell the grass had been worked over like it was because of the density and the aggressiveness. Here's what you gotta look for, guys, in your verticutting. If you'll look closely in these buckets, and I hope you can see that. I think this projector is in a little better focus than this one. But if you'll look closely, what you're seeing here is a mixture of green and off-color material. When you're doing your verticutting during the growing season, you're dipping your hand and looking at the material you're taking off. If you're only seeing green, you're not deep enough. You've got to be getting some stem material in there, bent or Bermuda, like you see some of that off-color where they're pulling up the stems. Because if you're only tickling on the top and pulling off leaf material, you're leaving those stems, and with these newer grasses, they're just becoming more matted and more matted and more matted, and create those layers in the soil that's going to give you a fit with localized dry spot, water management, everything that goes along with it. You've got to prevent these layers from develop and keep this dilution factor in mind. Dilution is the key to these managements today. And if you've got ultra dwarfs, this is not a surprise to you, but this was taken, this was a typical grooming on an ultra dwarf green. That's a double verticutting, and that's off of 3 greens. That's a typical Pronvo stump trailer. Probably every one of you has got one. But that's what kind of material we're talking about today that you got to take off. And this superintendent right here, he does this once a month during the growing season, 5 times a year in his case. Double verticutting with the carbide tip blades at a little over 1/8 of an inch. And sometimes he'll do it 3 times and go over it and then pick it up and mow it and clean it, and that's off of 3 greens. So that's the kind of thing we need to be showing our people, that this is what kind of grass we got. This is how it's growing. We've got to manage it accordingly. Now, here's an example of that operation. I was showing you where they're using the fairway unit on the ultra dwarf greens, 2 directions in this case because he's on a 2-inch center, and that's why he's going 2 directions, down almost a ½ an inch, and he does that twice a year. The ultra dwarfs came out as not being able to tolerate verticutting. Well, the trouble where they got that reputation is when we started seeing the thatch buildups with these ultra dwarfs, we went in and did some deep verticutting, but we left those blades on closed centers, and it won't tolerate that. If you've got your verticuts on the triplex, if you'll set up a program where you're taking out every other blade, you're spreading these out to 1 inch spacing, then you're going down that 1/4 of 3/8 where you're on 1 inch spacing and not close, you can do some of that deep verticutting and pull out some of those layers and that matted bent or Bermuda, and you're not going to hurt that bent grass or that Bermuda grass one bit. It will love that, and it will give you in a reasonable way to deal with it. The carbide tip blades, they go down, pull a good material, but when that's left, you do it immediately in front of your aerification, and your aerification and cleanup and top dressing, dragging in, you basically just about mask over those verticut grooves that you see, and like that first one I showed you, and it's amazing how quickly that cleans up. But the thing is that when you're doing this kind of verticutting along with your aerification, the golfer is not seeing any more work than if you just airified and top dress alone as far as their disruption. But the thing is, in some cases, you're almost doubling your amount of surface area and that % surface area you're trying to impact a year, but you're not showing that to the golfer. That's the whole key to it. They're only base that on how many operations we're doing a year. And that's why I've had some guys say, I tried to use that verticutting and my people about ran me out of town. Well, yeah, if you're doing it by yourself, now you're talking about airifying and verticutting, and you're spreading out these number of operations. But just like this one I was showing you, he's doing that twice a year. One of them is in August when his play is very low anyway, because he's got the Bermuda grass greens in his case. And so the people are happier than they've been in years with his hole punching operation, as they usually call it, because it's less disruptive. Now, we've all seen this operation. You know, a great new tool that we have as far as its flexibility and what we can do with it.